When we last left off, Naomi and Ruth had suffered the terrible loss of their husbands in Moab and were on their way back to Naomi's hometown of Bethlehem. Although she could have stayed in Moab and found a new husband to care for her, Ruth pledged her loyal love to her mother-in-law, Naomi, declaring,
"Stop pushing me away. Wherever you go, I'll go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God."
And now for episode 2.
Let me go out into the field and pick up whatever grain is left behind after the harvesters clear the field. Maybe some will be merciful toward you.
Go ahead, my daughters.
When God gave his law to his people, he told them to provide for widows, orphans, and strangers by leaving behind a portion of their harvest. And so Ruth left and went into the fields to pick up the grain that had been left behind by the harvesters. This is called gleaning. And so it was that the portion of the field she was working on belonged to Boaz, which was a relative of Naomi's husband. He was an honorable and wealthy man. As Ruth was working in his field, Boaz happened to arrive.
May God be with you.
His blessings be upon you.
Then, seeing Ruth, Boaz spoke to the young man in charge.
And who does this young woman belong to?
Remember, women at that time weren't free to belong to themselves. They always needed a father, husband, or son to care for them.
She is a Moabite woman who came back with Naomi. She asked my permission to pick up the grain our harvesters leave behind. Except for one small break, she has been here all day, working in the field from morning until now.
Boaz was so impressed by Ruth and how hard she was working that he makes a generous offer to her.
Listen to me, my daughter. Do not go and glean in any other field. Stay with the young women who work for me. Drink water from my water jars. Gather grains from my fields. You will be safe here because I have warned my young men not to bother you.
I am just a foreigner. Why have you noticed me and treated me like I'm important?
I have heard your story. I know everything about you. Everything you have done for your mother-in-law since your husband died. May God repay you for your sacrifice and reward you richly for what you have done.
Thank you for your kindness, though I am not worthy. I pray that you will look on me with such kindness, my Lord.
Boaz invited Ruth to eat with him and the harvesters. He offered her roasted grain, bread, and wine. Ruth ate so much that she was completely full and even had food left over. When her meal was finished, she got back up and returned to work. Boaz pulled some of the harvesters aside and gave them instructions.
Let Ruth pick up the grain from among the shelves. Do not reprimand or humiliate her for gleaning where it is not allowed. Instead, pick out the stalks from the sheaves that have already been bound and leave them for her to gather for herself. Make sure that no one gives her a hard time.
So Ruth worked in the field all day until the sun had nearly set. When she had finished gathering the leftover stalks, she beat the grain loose with a stick and gathered over 20 quarts. Then she carried it back to her mother-in-law along with the food left over from her lunch.
Where did you go today? May God bless the generous person who allowed you to glean all of this.
The man I worked for today is named Boaz.
He is our relative, a kinsman, redeemer of our family. May God bless Boaz for showing God's loyal love to us.
That isn't all. Boaz told me to stay with his workers for the rest of the harvest.
Do what he says. Stay with his young women who bind the sheaves. They will keep you safe.
So that's what Ruth did. She kept close to Boaz's young female servants and picked up everything they dropped. She worked hard for 7 weeks until the harvest was complete.